While many watch the Super Bowl or scan the skies for Chinese balloons, another tragedy unfolded in Ohio that you probably all heard of by now. Thousands fled for their lives north to Youngstown or east to Pennsylvania. Fire lit up the western horizon and dark clouds of toxic smoke billowed into the sky and blocked out the sun. Even now, as citizens are assured that they can safely return to their homes, multiple reports of pets and wildlife dying and fish floating up dead in Leslie Run Creek. Worries continue for thousands who depend on well water and groundwater in the area. And we all know that when the EPA says safe, they're basing that agreed upon acceptable levels for a select set of chemicals. What is acceptable to a testing agency may not be acceptable to you or for your long-term survival. Make no mistake about it, this is a tragedy that will unfold for years to come. And let's just call this incident what it is. It's criminal. And I know that's a strong opinion, and I don't know how you feel about it, but here's a situation where we have multiple cameras that were filming next to the tracks a full 20 miles before the accident that showed one of the axles on fire. Indeed, if there was a closed-circuit camera monitoring the trains 20 miles before, there must have also been a human operator or sensor that would have been aware of the problem, or critical personnel not in place because of staffing issues. What we do know is that the iconic American railroad company in charge, Norfolk Southern, broke fourth quarter and annual records for revenue and operating income, even though they refused to provide workers a day off. Operating revenue hit $3.2 billion, which was a fourth quarter record. It also marked an impressive 13% year-over-year increase, while America narrowly escaped a massive railway workers' strike. Now, for its part in the life or death evacuation of East Palestine, Ohio, the company originally donated a mere $25,000 to establish a family assistance center. And that comes out to about $5 per resident. Let that sink in for a moment. They also chose to light the toxic chemicals on fire instead of carefully removing them, even as residents were displaced and toxic dark clouds created so much smoke over the region that meteorologists said it was visible on weather radar. Now, some people may call this late-stage capitalism, and the gradual decline of America abroad and at home is inevitable. We've seen so much discontent in America over the last several years because incidents like this show how much our own country is in decline. And the elites, those that are in power, those that make these major financial decisions, they're all okay with that. Others believe the whole world is in decline, and the elites are okay with that as well. Some even think the elites have a willing hand in it all to only accelerate the fall of everyone else. I have some views on this, but admittedly, I don't give it a lot of time and energy as I have a strong feeling, despite my own frustrations at what I see, there's really not a lot that I can personally do. And it's in my own best interest for myself and my family to do what we can now to prepare for the future. When I look at the world, I see infrastructure systems that are incredibly old. They're vulnerable and they're poorly maintained. Big business elites have prioritized profits. They've cut workforces, they've kept pay low, and they've overworked employees to keep profits flowing to the top. Some super wealthy folks believe that they can manage and profit off the decline, and they're probably still making a profit by selling short and manipulating the markets. The 2008 market crash was a clear indicator of how the system works. The elites, the super wealthy, they were bailed out and the middle class was left holding the bag. And we still haven't even really recovered from that. And here's the thing, I'm not part of the elites. I've been around some very wealthy people in my lifetime, and even with the obscene amounts of money that I know they possess, they're no closer to being in a position to really make any significant change. When I see all these things happening in the world, I know at the end of the day, it's up to me to look after my family. I'm not interested in discussing the rights and privileges of the haves versus the have-nots with this channel. I don't think those discussions really will prevent any meaningful resolution, and that's why I've chose the path that I have and why I say what I say on this channel, because I think preparedness is a natural evolution to put someone on a path to prepare for so much of what's coming. Look, there always has and will always be the poor and the individuals that are just getting by. The wealthy elite, they're going to hide behind corporations with their offshore accounts and international charters. And while I'm not a part of those things, and I guess you probably aren't either, the outcome of the struggle between the privileged and the wealthy and the everyday person just trying to get by is out of my control. I accept this struggle, and I believe it's going to continue. And there's not a lot that I can do on my own to change the inevitable outcome or the points wherever it was going to boil over one day. And knowing this as a prepper, I know there are some things I can do right now to insulate myself in the future. This tragedy, and I'll call it that, in East Palestine, Ohio, and the surrounding area is just one of the string of infrastructure failings that we see with increased frequency and intensity. Over the last decade, specific to railroads, Alabama had 300 derailment incidents, California had 284, Georgia had 386, Florida had 106, and the list can continue on and on and on. But not all of those involve fatalities or toxic chemicals, so they don't always rise to our national attention, but any one of them could have. The Texas power outage, Jackson, Mississippi municipal water supply, and the Carolinas, Indiana, or Michigan power outages are some of the most high-profile infrastructure failings in recent months. Archaic electrical systems failing, they've sparked wildfires that have wiped out communities in seconds. And sadly, after the event, we always hear time after time how these tragedies could have been prevented if some simple upgrade done by the company was implemented. But here's the thing, it's cheaper for them to pay off for damages than to actually perform the necessary maintenance that's really needed to protect all of this in the first place. It's a story as old as time. And some would argue that we have seen these tragedies throughout history, and I agree. And most don't remember when an industrial failing of the Purity Distilling Company in 1919, where a molasses tank weighing 13 tons, it burst and it sent a wave of hot molasses through Boston at 35 miles an hour, killing 21 and injuring 150 people. Many won't remember the Union Carbide accident in Bhopal, India, that killed an estimated 8,000 people in 1984. And how many of us still remember the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010 and how it decimated the Gulf of Mexico for years? And yet, has anything really changed to protect communities in that area? No, of course not. These industrial and large-scale man-made disasters, they occur throughout history. And I'm not going to disagree, but I think we are seeing today more of these smaller disasters that are growing in intensity and in frequency and are compounding other disasters. Maybe it's America's death by 1,000 cuts. When I see events like this, I personally feel the need to prepare my family for the range of tragic possibilities that the future could bring. And I don't think that's paranoia. I think it's just living in the reality and seeing what's happening and just realizing that more and more of these incidents will happen. Corporations will prioritize profit over people, and it's at the end of the day my responsibility, and I don't know how many times I can repeat this, to take care of my household. I'm not going to put my faith in corporations to do the right thing and to clean up their messes or even prevent them in the first place. I'm not going to count on SCE, Southern California Edison, or Pacific Gas and Electric to harden off their systems from attack, insulate their wires properly, or retrofit them to endure high winds in a timely enough manner. Just recently, parts of Austin, Texas, they went through a prolonged power outage, and personally I had friends that were impacted by that. And look, I know at the end of the day, like many of us that come to the preparedness community, we realize the government is, they're not there to bail us out. They're not going to toss us a fire extinguisher or a life raft. A lot of times they come in to clean up the mess, more or less. It's great that these government relief agencies and nonprofit entities exist to assist folks after disaster, but relying on them solely, it's not part of my plan. Is it yours? Is it your neighbor's plan? And this is why I push for a little more each day toward moving my household toward a self-sufficient setup. It's why I prep, and it's probably one of the big reasons you do as well. And we all know that, look, at the end of the day, no one is coming to personally save you. I read in the comments, and I frequently receive emails from folks who have lived through a disaster of some type, which is why they prepare. And I expect hearing from city prepping subscribers in East Palestine. And if you are one, please post a comment below. I would love to learn how you're preparing better position you to get out of town when the dark clouds of toxic chemicals darken the sky overhead. If you aren't in the area of this specific tragedy, you have to at least learn from this. Let it be your cautionary tale that finally motivates you to get that bug out backpack. I just recently did a video in the last month on building a family bug out bag system for this year. I just update it every year. Get your bug out bag kit with emergency food, your water, your energy, and medicine stored in your garage or wherever it is that makes most sense for you, and have that ready to be able to put into a vehicle if you have to get out of Dodge very quickly. Obviously, get your vehicle kit in order as well, and I've done a lot of videos on that. Whether you're in a town with a population of 4,700 people tucked away and insulated in the Midwest, or you live in a city with thousands and thousands, make it a plan today to get out of town if you must. Know multiple routes out of town independent of your normal means. Your options after disaster, they're limited if you rely entirely on your car and a route with one bridge out of town. If you don't have an everyday carry bag or EDC in your car for when roads become impassable, but you still have to get to safety, your options are limited. Surviving comes down to having options, and not surviving is a result of running out of options. That's as simple as I can probably state that. If you take but one lesson from this industrial transit accident and how it has been dealt with, accept that your safety and security are entirely in your own hands. Big businesses, they may donate a few $1,000s to relief efforts. Non-government entities might eventually provide some relief, and the government might provide some aid or one day be arm twisted into imposing and enforcing safety regulations. Before that time comes, though, there will be more East Palestines. There will be more power outages and more unsafe drinking water. There will be more crop failures and food recalls. There will be more food supply issues. Whether we just have to endure them over the normal course of our history as our ancestors did, or they indicate a more significant, gradual, but accelerating decline, well, only the hindsight of history will really let us know. It doesn't matter what you or I think about them. What matters is whether we are prepared for them, because I assure you they will continue to happen. They have occurred in the past and they are happening now, and they're going to continue to happen. Whether you will be able to survive them and look at them from a historical perspective is going to be solely dependent upon how prepared you are now. And we should take note of that and prepare for an uncertain future. I hope you do. As always, stay safe out there.